Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this panel discussion. As mentioned by the MC, the topic today is on seafarers and safety, in particular looking at predicting dangers and unpredictable circumstances through IoT, which stands for Internet of Things, IoT capabilities and predictive artificial intelligence. So my name is Sui, and before we begin today's discussion, I would like to invite my esteemed colleagues here to give a brief introduction of themselves that will give us some background in terms of where they come from, what's their expertise before we deep dive into today's topic. So without further ado, can I invite Ben?
Thanks. Good. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Palmer. I run the maritime chunk of a company called Inmarsat, based in London, but a very global business. We provide essential safety, connectivity, and communication services to the maritime community globally, and have a long and proud heritage of supporting seafarers, keeping them safe, and increasingly enabling them to be the best that they can be at sea and at shore. Looking forward to an interesting discussion.
Thank you, Ben. Dr. O?
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Seung Oh. I'm working for CRISO as a principal research engineer. CRISO is a National Research Institute, stands for Korea Research Institute, Ship and Ocean Engineering. Our institute's the mission is to lead a technological innovation in the field of ship and maritime community to address the current issue of country and society, and to contribute to the realization of global maritime country. So personally, I've been in the research project on the development of marine information standard by international organizations like IHO and IALA during 20 years. And now I'm conducting the Smart Atom project, which is marine transportation facility. We are developing the integrated platform for Aton, and we are developing some Aton information service. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O. Next up, can we have Mario, please?
Thank you, Sui. Good afternoon, everybody. Mario Moretti, I'm the managing director for V-Ship here in Singapore. As you might know, V-Group is a provider both of ship management and also of marine services. We have overall 40,000 plus crew in our pool. So of course our activities and our close to our heart is of course the well-being of crew. So I'm looking forward for a fruitful discussion today. Thank you.
Excellent. And last but not least, Simon.
Thank you, Suye. My name is Simon Frank. I'm the general manager in IMC Ship Management, looking after the crew management arm of the business that we have. My background is very much marine HR. I've been also responsible for shore-based HR functions in some companies. But I'm looking forward also to this discussion we're going to have here. I'm trying to take a position where I will be representing the seafarers that are not here, but definitely coming with a marine HR perspective on the AI, predictive AI discussion, which is of course very relevant today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I need to also give myself a little bit of airtime. So my name is Sui. I'm the executive director of the Institute of High Performance Computing, which is one of the R&D institute under the Agency for Science, Technology and Research in Singapore, or we call it A-STAR for short. Over the past 15 to 20 years, we have been doing lots of research in maritime area and the marine engineering area. And our institute focuses on artificial intelligence and application of advanced modeling and simulation techniques and technology to solve real-world problems. So without further ado, gentlemen, thank you once again. Let's dive into this topic on safety. Now, safety, I think it might be good to frame today's discussion by first defining what safety and the scope that we are looking at. So we all come from different sides of the industrial sector. So when we talk about the term safety, what comes right to your mind? What is top on your list when we talk about safety? Right. Can we perhaps invite Ben to kickstart this discussion?
I think it's the right place to start. And I mentioned earlier our heritage. I mean, Inmarsat grew and was born as a company, as an enterprise dedicated to keeping people safe at sea. And that's still very important to our DNA. We have 130,000 Inmarsat sea terminals deployed out on the water. And I know that many seafarers have come to rely upon the resilience, the reliability of that service in times of need. But I think it's the right question to ask, because I think historically we've taken a somewhat reactive view of safety. If you like, the flare went up when something bad had either happened or was about to happen. And I think we all know that things go wrong when they go wrong at sea. They can go wrong very fast. And they can also go wrong in places which actually, irrespective of how quickly they go wrong, there's absolutely nothing that can be done to correct or avoid or avert the dangerous, whatever the opposite of safe, anti-safe outcomes are. And I think there's a real opportunity. I think this conversation as we progress is an opportunity to get into a slightly broader definition of safety, one that's predicated on a more proactive, a more predictive, and a more preventative view of safety, because ultimately it's good to fish people out of the water when the ship has sunk or it's bumped into something, but actually we'd much rather, I suspect, avoid those circumstances happening in the first place. And I think the combination of digitalization, modeling sim, mission-based engineering, and the connectivity backbone that allows the sort of real-time communication of indicators and warnings across the fleet to be transmitted in a timely fashion is going to be an important part of that discussion. I also think, and I shamelessly have been very impressed this week with the focus of the discussions I've been party to around, I'll just call it welfare. And I think it's worth us, as we discuss this, thinking about not only the kind of more forward-looking view, preventative view of safety, but also a slightly broader definition of what we mean by safe. I don't think it's about just avoiding people going home with fewer arms and legs than they came to work with in that sort of traditional safety. But if I think about other industries, we talk a lot about health, safety, and the environment in the same breath. And I think there's an opportunity as we discuss and talk about the application of data and AI in this space to actually broaden our discussion about what safe operations at sea really mean, end to end and holistically, thought about from the perspective of the seafarers that Simon is going to be the main man for during our discussion.
Thank you, Ben. I want to follow on with perhaps a question to Simon, more from the seafarer's point of view. When we talk about safety, could you share with us from your perspective, what do you think about when we think about seafarers, the people?
Well, I think, first of all, very interesting topic, and a discussion about safety obviously always is relevant and makes sense and should be priority for all discussions, basically. And I think my view on safety as a concept introduced into our business and relating to our seafarers on board our ships is that often, I'm sorry to say that the phrase can be misused, and there's a tendency to bring safety up as a topic that maybe not always is taking you in the right direction. One of the examples of that is that safety, from my perspective, and should always be a concept where you build a support and a trust and a surrounding for a seafarer, for a ship's crew, to make sure that all operations are done in the most proper manner with the least risk of having incidents and accidents happening. But what you often see is that the discussion quickly turns into a commercial discussion about downtime, about how do we make sure that the ship is always operational, how do we make sure that we are basically not losing money, and that's wrong, right? For me, And also internally in an organization, it's always extremely important that safety remains to be a discussion and a topic around how you safeguard your people, how you make your procedures the safest possible, and not lose that focus. Because if we tend to drift in other directions, then you also tend to lose the focus on what is the main target here.
Thank you for that. I think that's a very wholesome understanding of what safety is all about. I'd like to turn to Dr. O. I understand that your background is in hydrographics, right? I'm not sure, it might be a tough question, but from the point of hydrographics, what are issues around safety that you think about?
Okay, yeah. In the view of hydrographic, the hydrographic aims to produce a nautical product for seafarer, to navigate safely. And for the example, there are several kind of nautical product like the paper nautical chart and the publication like reserve light and surface current and the sailing direction. That kind of nautical product would be very helpful and mandatory for safe navigation. It is mandated by IMO and convention regulation. So I think most important thing is the nautical publication should be prepared, and the product should be up to date to ensure safe navigation. So in my view, the safety is to prepare a nautical publication and nautical product and make it up to date. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So it is about safety in terms of the navigation. Yeah.
Right.
You. Now let's move to Mario. From ship management point of view, what do you think about when we talk about safety?
Well, I also come from a previous experience, almost 20 years in classification society. So of course, safety is our North Pole. But I think that of course, linked to safety, there is pretty much a lot the human factor. So really, the well-being of people and making sure that the people are in the right mindset is the key to have a safe environment. Interaction among people on board. So this kind of aspect we are looking at really on the mental well-being, the connectivity. I think the previous presentation was very, very, very important because still the connectivity on board is not as expected. The people that are on board, they expect to have the same level of connectivity as if they are ashore, and this has an impact on their mental well-being. We have quite a lot of seafarers coming from countries that, unfortunately, in this period of time, they are in turmoil. So for them, not being able to properly connect to the family has really a huge impact on their well-being, and that potentially has huge impact in the safety of the ship.
That's a very important point. Thank you very much, Mario. I thought it is a good time for us to segue into discussing where we are now in terms of deployment of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, in the context of seafarer safety. I think over the past 1 decade especially, there has been huge advancement in AI technology, IoT technology, and not to mention the last 6 months, it was rather crazy with ChatGPT and all those coming into play. Where are we now in terms of application of all these technology in the safety that we have been discussing about? Ben, would you like to perhaps share with us your insight? I also picked up this question. I thought it is relevant to what we are discussing now. Maybe I should put this up on the screen. Yeah. Can the panel share what IoT applications have been developed that are a use case to demonstrate widespread use for ensuring crew well-being and safety? Primarily about where we are now, in terms of technology deployment.
I'll I'll try and come to that, but I'd like to answer your first question,
Sure.
if I may. And my weakness in this space, but actually in some respects my advantage, is I didn't grow up man and boy in the maritime world. I've come into this relatively recently. My background really is in the defence and national security world, where and the reason I mention that is because the enormous expansion of the productive embracing of exactly the sorts of technologies that we're talking about here, relative to big data, applied intelligence, and particularly autonomy, have been and are in widespread use in the world from which I've come. And that gives me a kind of interesting perspective on what might be coming. Because I think the answer to your question is we're on the cusp of something really exciting. There are some potential obstacles to mass adoption and scalability that have as much to do with cultures, behaviors, and ways of thinking and working as they do to the technology. So I'm actually not too bothered about technology maturity, because I think you're right. And I'm really excited about some of the potential use cases around things like human-machine teaming that take the really dull, boring, and not very interesting tasks away from the human being on the ship and augment the human beings on the ship with the kind of technologies that are widely available in industries other than shipping. I think there's a really interesting conversation about autonomy, which tends to get confused with a kind of binary choice around ships with people on them and ships without, which actually, in my view, is a much more graduated conversation about which pieces of the activity you can automate and autonomize. I think there's a really interesting set of conversations and use cases about big data. And by that, I mean big data, not quite big data or moderately large data. I mean the kind of big data that comes from the massive data sets that exist at fleet level, not the quite large data sets that come off individual ships. And I think the real opportunity in this space is going to be from finding ways across the industry to get better at collaborating and opening ourselves up to the potentialities that come from sharing in an environment and industry which traditionally has not always been as good at sharing and collaborating and being transparent with itself and with each other as is the case. But there's a lot of money available. There's a lot of folk with really good ideas. And I think if we could get our collective, if we get ourselves organized properly, having the right conversations, I think there's a huge amount of value that can be extracted, not only in the context of safety, but actually in the context of doing operations better, which in themselves, to Simon and Mario's points, will make ships safer. I'll let others pick up on the IoT piece while I think about my answer to that one, if you don't mind.
Mario, want to add on to that?
Just chip in. Of course, I mean, looking at predictive maintenance is something that is already in place that can help to prevent failures and therefore also helping and ensuring the crew safety and the crew well-being. In our group, we have a machine learning, a tool called Sentinel that evaluates the data of the last 3 years as a benchmark, and every day in the last 6 months evaluate these data to verify whether the ship and the level of risk of the ship is. So that is something that is already implemented. And I also go back to one of the sessions this morning. Sometimes we need to be careful when we look at digitalization and automation, because digitalization has the word say, bear with me, I'm Italian, so is digit is fingers. So basically from paper to computer, but still is manual entry. So we need to move to the automation, because there is less paper today on board the ship, yes, but the work of the seafarer on board has actually increased because of a lot of manual entry. So we want to monitor the ship, and it's a fantastic tool, but we also need to understand that this has an impact on our seafarer as well. So if you are able to really to move from the digitalization to the automation of data, not automation, of course, then the ship are highly automated, so this is helping, but this will be the biggest use that we can really do, IoT, AI, to help our seafarers on board to release the burden on the shoulders on all the reporting and all these kind of activities.
I can just maybe add, completely agree with what Mario is saying, that yes, on the digitalization process, the paperwork on board is slowing down, minimizing now. But the access to data, the tremendous and massive elements of data that we are presenting to our ship's crew is a challenge and needs to be managed in a proper way from an organization perspective. I just also want to make a comment to what you said, Suyi, about the last 10 years has, yes, been a journey regards to digitalization and access to electronic equipment on board. I think the next 10 years is going to be even more massive. If you take time to walk around downstairs and see what opportunities we are facing today regards to what can be presented on board, if the wrong measures are used to control that, I think companies will end up in some problems. I think again, there's much more responsibility on organizations today to make sure that what you present as IoT applications on board is value added, is bringing value to the operation that you have on board. It links very closely to safety and make sure that these things are not spinning out of control and not becoming let's say an effort to impress third-party elements in our industry like oil majors, so on. So I think it ties very closely together with safety, the digitalization process. That how do we control what we want to offer? How do we make sure that it is value adding, and how do we make sure that we do not end up in a situation where our seafarers are actually losing grip and control of what they are supposed to do on board?
So everyone, following what Simon said, please, if you haven't done so, visit the exhibition. It's at Basement 2. You look at the suite of technology that is now available to us. The previous keynote actually set my mind thinking about wellness. So we have seen many technology in the IoT space, but it's more connected to machines. Now, if we talk about human wellness, have you seen any technology insertion or at least some demonstration that that's measuring human, perhaps physiological signal that could indicate that they are in distress or that we need to take care of their wellness? Are these technology now being looked at in the industry?
Well, just a few comments to that, because in my view, yes, there's now a portfolio of assisting tools available that wasn't available 5-10 years ago, and again, used right, definitely, from a seafarer's perspective, these things can be very useful, and on the mental health side, on the well-being, on the all these kind of also softer elements, we have tools today that we didn't have just a while ago. I think we use one of the bigger suppliers in the market on well-being. It goes a little bit back to what I said before, that we can introduce any system on board. The implementation process and controlling, getting this into a value-added position to actually assist is what is key, and not the list of how many applications you actually have available for your ship crew. So coming back to controlling the process, being in a dialogue with your seafarers even before you start to implement things is very, very important. But the market that we look at today and the opportunities we have today, if used right, lots of opportunities, definitely.
Thank you. Ben, you want to say something?
Well, only that. I mean, that's exactly aligned to what we see. I mean, but I think there's layers to it. I mean, there's all kinds of people doing really clever stuff around health and wellbeing monitoring, telemedicine, diagnostics. I think training is a really important piece of crew well-being, keeping people up to speed, allowing them to develop as people and develop their skills and position themselves for both personal and professional growth. Right down to the basics, like actually having a secure, reliable connectivity pipe that allows them to keep in touch with their families, pay their bills online, entertain themselves, keep in touch with their passion for, I don't know, Sampdoria or whichever football club happens to be their favourite. I think that's that holistic view. You know, from our perspective, we see 150% increases in crew demand through our pipe year on year. And I'm really struck by some statistics that's come out of some research we've done recently about how crew seafarers think about their, if you like, the employment value proposition, which, yes, of course, they want to be paid well, but actually on the back of the pandemic, having some surety around the regularity of shore leave is an important piece of it. But actually the biggest driver, 40% of the driver, has been around, will I be able to keep connected? That's a striking shift, I suspect, in terms of how people think about what it means to work for a good employer. And I'm sorry to reduce it to economics, but there is a little bit of selfish altruism here, that seafarers are going to be rarer, quality seafarers are going to be in demand, and companies that can really position themselves to attract and retain high-quality people are going to be safer, yes, and more profitable.
I think so. Just on jumping on the connectivity is a must moving forward, because, I mean, if you look at us, I don't want to even say the young generation, even us, we are always on the phone, we are always connected, and we cannot expect that people going on board don't have this kind of benefit. And if we have a lack of seafarers, and this is one of the things that has to be put in place to make sure that we attract new talent to go on board. That is really, connectivity is the main issue, as I was so happy to listen to the previous session, because it's really the key factor to attract talent. There is a perception that you miss that kind of human integration when you are on board because you are connected. But the new world is this one. When you look at people, they are sitting, they don't speak to each other normally. They are on the phone. The young generation is like that, and you cannot expect that suddenly they go on board the ship, they forget the connectivity, and they start talking to each other in the office or in the mess room.
I know exactly what you mean, because I have 2 boys, always on the phone.
Okay, yeah, I agree. The connectivity is both important, and as you know, in the maritime environment, the communication is not good. Yeah, so the international organization discussing what communication could be standardized, like BDS and satellite. So I think the Marine Communication Network technology and standard should be considered to ensure the connectivity between shore and ship. Yeah.
So that's an area probably very close to what Ben's area on the network and the communication. Yeah, I thought that's an important point, and I want to take what Ben said just now about this point about data sharing. Right? I think if we want to talk about proliferation of artificial intelligence, and perhaps even sharing of some of the models, for example, for predictive maintenance. Now, we do that for one vessel. Can it be scaled to other vessels? What about other models of ships? How about for the whole industry? Are these reusable? Can we share? Is data shareable across the industry? So I think this topic probably is worthwhile for us to spend a little bit of time discussing. So picking up from what Dr. O says, in terms of standards, perhaps we can look at data and ask ourselves, from the point of standards, how does that play a role in encouraging the industry towards sharing of data? Could you give us some insight into that? Yeah.
Yeah. Standard. I think for the industry, standard is important from the standard, they can produce their product and equipment. Yeah. So for the data exchange data, burning data, the IMO developed the concept of e-navigation, and they define some maritime service description and relevant document. And the IALA, another international organization, also developed some guideline on the technical service specification. So the earlier discussion, there are big database in onshore. So we wanted to provide our data by maritime service concept to the ship. So for the purpose, database standard about data model and service specification and the navigation system like ACDIS, all parts need international standard for industry, I think.
Mario, want to add on to that?
I think would be also a good point when we look at the connectivity from a labor convention point of view. I think could be some good point to put some sort of requirement in terms of minimum connectivities, because it's really linked to the well-being of the staff on board. So that is something that could be looked at on the IMO level in putting this kind of requirement in that respect.
Yeah. Just what you mentioned on the learning and development side of how do we utilize the access to AI and connectivity and get the kind of the best results. My take, and again coming from an operational perspective and how to impact our seafarers, learning and development by tradition till recent was a concept that was maybe not so updated and not so modern. Now we have tools and we have all these things as connectivity provides that gives us access to data, that gives us opportunities to do direct learning on things on board ships. And it's very relevant, the question that's asked here, how do we also ensure that as an industry we share this information that brings learning and development to a higher level. So I think that's a journey we are kind of embarking now, which is going to be very decisive for success in the future, that we are able to provide much better tools in terms of learning and developing and training our seafarers to become more competent and to become more safe and better operational in the environments they are working in. Again, needs to be controlled, needs to be managed in a proper way, but definitely the access to data and the access to connectivity and some examples mentioned in the TK presentation before was very illustrative around these elements, and I think that's going to be a very interesting kind of next couple of years. We're going to see how do we as organizations implement this in a proper way. And how do we, at the same time, also establish, which is maybe a challenge in our industry, a good cooperation across companies to make sure that we get the best results.
Yeah. In the industry right now, are there any efforts that you know of that is towards encouraging sharing of the data? Is there any consortium or any effort in that direction?
I think if you look, for instance, a RightShip is actually looking towards that direction. The problem that I see here is we need to make sure that we have a system in place that we reward the transparency. Unfortunately, we are still not there, and it still looks that the more transparent you are, the more you are penalized in that sense. So we need to get out of that kind of mindset that is very, very important. Of course, I see this question, how we get the access to the incident data. Okay, let me just pass a joke. Of course, if you use a third-party ship manager with 600 ships, you have access to a lot of data. But joking aside, yes, it is really the key point to have this one. I think that Shell with the partners in safety is a very important tool. that we have to discuss and to share best practice and things that happen. But really, transparency is important, and I go back to the starting of my comment, but we need to make sure that we reward transparency, so that there is a system in place that actually reward the fact that the incidents are reported and reward that one. Reward how the incidents are taken care of. Do not penalize because you have incident. They need to reward because you manage the incident properly. So that is where we would like and we want to go.
Ben, please.
Yeah. Firstly, I think Dr. O nailed it on the importance of standardization. It sounds such a dull topic, but actually it's the thing that really unlocks the kind of collaboration and transparency that we're talking about. The three thoughts, and one picking up on the question. I think it is about regulators and governments, but actually I think far more powerful will be the industry figuring out that it's in its economic interest to get better at this. And so incentives will really matter. On Anonymous's comment, firstly, the trick to this actually is anonymization. We don't all need to know the details of each other's performance or our OEM's engine rotation statistics or whatever. What we need to know is the insight that comes from aggregating vast data sets and anonymizing them. So finding a way as an industry to have a mature conversation about that, and we're a bit puerile, I think, at the moment around that, would be a good step. And then on the question, yes, I think it would be good to be able to pool data in respect of bad things that have already happened, but actually the real power of AI will be unlocking the predictive, forward-looking, proactive piece of this. And so I'm actually less bothered about accessing data from insurers about things that have already gone wrong. I'm more interested in thinking about how do we get ahead of the curve and stop the things from going wrong in the first place. We haven't in this conversation. One more point, because I think there's a real opportunity, but also a risk here. We've talked about safety and well-being so far in the context of the shipping industry as it is today. I mean, if there's one enormous bow wave of fun coming for this industry, it's going to be associated with the fuel transition and decarbonisation. And it seems to me that we won't effect that without developing some good answers and methodologies and protocols in relation to some of these questions. So that presents us both with a real opportunity as an industry, because safety and assurance is going to be absolutely fundamental to underpinning people's confidence in migrating to new fuels because of the risks associated with bad things happening. So unless we get that right, we won't successfully make that transition, which means that getting the transition itself is a real opportunity to focus people's minds on how we embrace the power of predictive analytics to give ourselves a good chance of making that transition in an affordable and orderly fashion, I would suggest. So I think there's an opportunity and a threat in there.
Yeah, Dr. O?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about government role. I think the source data management and the gathering is cost money, and I think the incident data and the maritime data, normally government managing and produce that kind of data, so they need to establish some service to provide the richest source data to the industry. So I think the government need to establish some platform to share that kind of source data.
So government's involvement would be
Yeah.
quite critical. So gentlemen, thank you for your sharing. As I was listening, I was also reflecting, and one of the things that I was thinking about was how could we become a better learning organization or a learning industry? And if no data about incident could be made available, the only way then for us to learn is learning through our own mistakes. But if data like this could be more open, more transparent, I think we could learn from each other's mistake and also learn from how we could better manage it, or to be more preemptive to prevent such things from happening. And I thought that is quite critical for our industry to ensure that we do better in terms of safety. Yeah. So thank you very much. I think I'm trying to also reserve some time for us to address some of the questions that was raised through Pigeonhole. But before that, I wanted to pick your minds on where you think the next phase would be like. Because we say that no, the past 10 years has been crazy. Perhaps the next 10 will be even crazier in terms of using technology to enhance safety. Where do you think that might lead us? Where's the trend? This is probably a bit of crystal gazing, but you've been in the industry for many years, so we'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Yeah, Mario?
Want to start? Of course, I mean, I think we touch telemedicine is something that is already implemented, but there are actually some technologies that can really monitor the pulse, the heartbeat, but also monitor where the seafarer is. So these kind of tools are available. Of course, again, the feeling that when we try to implement these technologies that can also give an alarm if the seafarer is falling down, then goes to the fact that some of the people are not ready to have that one because they feel that there is a bit too much control in their life. So there is always a flip of the coin in this one. But this is the way I see in future, really to have a proper monitoring of the status of the person on board, where is he, and how is he, whether he's sleeping or not, so that you can really have a direct access, direct monitoring, and whenever there is a need to properly address it and to make sure that it's properly taken care of.
It's like a full digital twin of the vessel that you're talking about.
Yes, well, there are. You put gate. It's like when you enter inside the room, there is a sensor in which the person in that room, so you can monitor where the person. In the offshore industry is a bit more implemented. This one in the shipping because of connectivities, because of various factors, because also on the fact that people do not want to be field control. But this is technology that are available and can be actually implemented. Mm-hmm. I think nowadays you have the application, your family, you know wherever they are, your kids, your wife, yourself. So and the similar application can be done in an enclosed environment inside the ship.
Yeah, can I just add, because I think what Mario said about, I think going forward, we already see telemedicine being an important part of the support we can extend. The whole mental well-being of our seafarers was something we didn't even discuss like 5 years ago. It has all been boosted also by the COVID challenges that we've seen in the industry. If anything good coming from COVID, at least we saw a boost of how can we support our seafarers in very difficult situations. And again, connectivity helps and gives us opportunities that we again didn't have a few years ago. And again, I think that's going to be very decisive for our industry and very significant for our industry the next 5 to 10 years to set up the right support system on the mental well-being part. If we, God forbid, would end up in situations like we saw under COVID, we need to be much better prepared and make sure that we extend much better support because now we have the knowledge, now we have the tools to be able to do that. So that's my kind of top of my mind regards to what's going to take charge in how we maybe develop ourselves next couple of years.
Thank you. Dr. O or Ben, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, in the perspective of hydrographic service, all the nautical product about hydrographic domain, in the hydrographic domain, we produce nautical data manually, such as depth contour and the kind of feature object. But when we address the AI and IoT technology to the hydrographic domain, the AI service will produce automatically the data, more dense data, more up-to-date and real-time data. So that service will be operated in the future. But we need to think about the reliability of the AI-based software service. So we need to check the reliability and software quality. And I think we need to consider the interface between AI technology and human. All information are shown as symbol and the graphic, photo on ENC and chart. But I think from the user feedback perspective, we need to design improve how that marine information, safety information could be shown to the user mariner.
So all these are the advancement that you think could be achieved through using AI in data acquisition, data synthesis, and then capturing of all the oceanographic information. Actually, I'm just curious. I'm totally not in this field, so I'm just wondering how much of the ocean has yet to be mapped.
The ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the national territory water, every country produce their data, survey all area. But the public area, it's not being surveyed. But we are using the satellite and other sensor. We produce low dense barometric data. Yeah.
Okay.
There are some Gecko project to produce the open sea.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yes, Ben, you want to?
Well, I had a list actually, and I think everybody's covered it. I mean, but real-time charting, real-time ECDIS, tele everything. I mean, not just telemedicine, tele-training, tele-crisis management, tele-repair, tele-maintenance, tele-problem solving, augmented reality around, giving the guy a much bigger suite of technical support when he's could be a he, could be a she, when he or she is doing their business about the ship. I think mission rehearsal for modeling in sim and mission-based systems engineering offers a real opportunity, particularly in some of the sort of offshore applications, moving things around and thinking about actually practicing virtually is going to be important. Piloting, that's a dangerous activity if you look on YouTube. So the fewer people we can have jumping off small boats and climbing up the sides of ships, the better. Sadly, a lot of pilots meet their end that way, and it's a real issue in the industry. You asked about how we see things, and I think my headline comment though would be it's going to be messy. It's not going to be smooth for all the reasons we've talked about. We're going to make some mistakes. And I don't think the issue is technology. We've already discussed a lot of this stuff is out there, ready to roll. It's going to be about human beings' propensity to change the way they do their business and the way they think about what it is to be a seafarer. And that, I think, is going to be a big piece of the messiness going forwards in terms of how people embrace different ways of doing things that they've convinced themselves are optimized today because they've been that way for, the business model hasn't really changed since the Vikings, has it? Let's face it. So, there's going to be a human factors piece, as Mario was talking about earlier, which I think is going to be critical to overcome.
Yeah, so change management would be one very critical thing that we have to manage, right? So talking about change, I think let's do a bit of change here by switching gear to look at questions on the pigeonhole. Let me bring up one question on connectivity, since this topic has cropped up a few times. The question is, internet connectivity on board sometimes cascades to crew fatigue issues as seafarers are surfing the net, streaming movies in off time. How can this be managed as it can lead to serious incidents? Yeah, so connectivity could have a dual side to it as well. Yeah. Gentlemen, anybody who is who might want to respond to this?
I will take it, of course, my view on this one. Of course, whatever you do, there is always the flip of a coin, but the answer would be then we just stop the connectivity on board. I don't think is the answer. So of course has to be managed, but I mean the fact that the connectivity on board has to be managed during the outside of the working time, when he's doing his resting time and so on. So yes, there is a potential implication on this one, but much more potential implication of not having a good connectivity on board. Of course, as in everything, there is an etiquette, there is a procedure to be applied. Connectivities we see it whenever there are incidents, and we need to make sure that the seafarers don't take pictures and put in social media this kind of information. So yes, there are implications, but the benefit overcome the negative part of it. That is my view.
Yeah, I agree, and I think also there was, I remember some incidents or some situations a couple of years back where there was serious discussions about should the solution be to limit the internet time on board vessels, and I agree also that that's not the solution. I think we have to manage, and again referring to the presentation made by TK, it was mentioned there that there's a training effort and a training kind of effort we need to do as a company as well. There we need to help and support and educate our seafarers, and how do we manage the connectivity part on the social side on board our ships. Obviously, it's not that, you know, before connectivity there was also entertainment on board that could take away, you know, free time from our seafarers. So it's not like all black and white, but yes, I'm sure that, you know, if we look at kind of statistics, there will be more kind of tendencies to use social elements as you can through connectivity now. But I think again it goes back to take a responsibility as an organization, make sure that you have a direction on where you want to go. We also have to comply with work rest hours and things like that needs to also be prioritized in that discussion. So these things falls under the CSR part, where we as a company will have to take a position on this and make sure that we support our seafarers also in that direction.
I mean, this is a genie that I think has escaped the bottle. I think this is what we call a gravity issue. Let's deal with it. But I'd only note that if you replace the word on board with almost any other working environment or domestic environment, and replace seafarers with workers, or in my case, teenage boys, the same problem arises. And so it becomes about standards and discipline and leadership and frameworks and ways of working to drive a professional organization and operation that makes use and exploits the benefits of the connectivity and doesn't get denuded by it. But I think that's kind of life, actually, and I don't think there's much we can do standing on the beach and asking the waves to go back in relation to this topic. I don't think is going to be a very profitable way forward.
So this comment that we are showing on the screen, I think is asking perhaps from the angle of the business owner. If I'm 80% of what I'm paying for is not for the business, but for other purposes, do you think this is something that the industry is ready, to go that way?
Yeah, but I think so. You know, I was not aware of this 80-20% share that's coming from statistics, but I think, it should be seen as a whole. The connectivity is a retention factor. It's something that will help you to ensure that you develop the best pool of seafarers. So even though not taking this into a commercial direction, it is a must that you have to present something that's attractive, that's also responsible, but definitely also attractive. And connectivity comes with also the social part, and it comes with the opportunity for the seafarers to stay connected, to be present in their families, even remote. But also, that's an asset, and it should be treated like that.
You might expect me to have something to say about this one, but and I'm not sure I recognise that statistic at a macro level. Though of course there will be vessels where the statistic is true. I mean, I think our take on it is absolute consumption is going up exponentially, as I mentioned earlier on. It's our responsibility and those others that operate in our market space to make sure that we're providing the levels of capacity and the flexible, tailorable, variegated pipe that allows people to, yes, make sure that their crew are happy and get their essential business and operational activities done as well. I think, as I said earlier, crew consumption has gone up dramatically over the last 3 or 4 years, so too has business and operational consumption, and I'd expect both to continue to rise, particularly as we start to embrace some of the things we've been talking about. So rest assured, from an Inmarsat perspective, we're very focused on how we can keep providing people with the capacity globally, reliably, and critically securely to meet both their business and crew welfare needs. The precise proportions will vary in different parts of the market space. See me afterwards if you want to know more about the attractive propositions that we can offer you over the next few years to help you meet with this sort of demand. But it's going to be an exciting time to be in the connectivity space over the next few years as people really embrace this stuff.
Gentlemen, I think we have time perhaps for one last comment before we end. This clock here looks a bit dangerous to me. It's like a time bomb. It's going to go off. Yeah. So last comment, perhaps Mario or Dr. O, you want to make your... Yeah.
No, okay. Of course, I was referring to this question. That there is, let's also be frank, that whenever there is a cost, there is an issue behind. So, and that is where, especially as a third-party manager in which you speak with the ship owner, you need to present the benefit of the connectivity as we talk now on increasing maybe $1,000 or $2,000 a month. So we are talking of costs that are not massive in the context of the OPEX of the ship, but still is something that has been considered. And that's why it really the narrative of the benefit behind is very important, because still we see whenever you go and asking for an increase of cost, there is always immediately a sense of stepping back and not seeing the added value in it. So this question is very much true. There is a concern and cost in the sense, yes.
So perhaps if there can be a further study into this to say that through providing better connectivity, it increases seafarers' wellness, and that could reduce accidents, and the savings is such that it might make perfect sense, or the business sense or business case to move this forward. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, everyone. I think our time has run out. So thank you for your participation, everyone. Thank you.